Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. His fingers closed around the expensive silk of the stranger's sleeve before his brain could even scream stop, a desperate anchor cast into a stormy sea. The ballroom was a kaleidoscope of diamonds and malice, spinning too fast, the air thin and choking. Julian didn't look at the face of the man he had just grabbed. He only looked back, his breath hitching in his throat as he saw Marcus pushing through the crowd. Marcus, with his predatory smile and eyes that promised pain. Marcus, who refused to understand the word over. Panic, cold and sharp, had driven Julian to the nearest towering figure in a black tuxedo. He needed a shield. He needed a wall. He didn't realize he had just thrown himself behind a loaded gun. "Please," Julian whispered, his voice trembling as he pressed his forehead against the stranger's shoulder, feigning intimacy to hide his face. "Just for a moment. Pretend you know me." The reaction was immediate, but not the one Julian expected. The man didn't pull away. He didn't ask questions. Instead, an arm like a steel band wound around Julian's waist, pulling him flush against a chest as hard as marble. The scent of sandalwood, expensive tobacco, and something metallic, like the taste of a copper coin, filled Julian's senses. "If I pretend to know you, little bird," a voice rumbled, deep enough to vibrate through Julian's ribcage, "you might not like the ending of the story." Julian looked up then, and the breath left his lungs entirely. The man was beautiful in the way a thunderstorm is beautiful, terrifying, awe-inspiring, and destructive. He had eyes the color of obsidian, cold and unyielding, set in a face of sharp angles and pale skin. A scar cut through his left eyebrow, the only imperfection on a visage that screamed aristocrat. But it was the room's reaction that terrified Julian more than the man himself. As the stranger turned to shield Julian, the chatter within a 10-foot radius died instantly. The air pressure dropped. Even Marcus, who had been shoving guests aside, skidded to a halt 3 meters away, his face draining of color. "Mr. D'Angelo," Marcus stammered, his arrogance evaporating like mist under the sun. I didn't realize he was with you." The stranger, D'Angelo, looked at Marcus with the kind of disinterest one might show a cockroach. "He is now." Julian felt the trap snap shut. He had run from a wolf and thrown himself into the jaws of a dragon. The drive from the gala was silent, a suffocating quiet that filled the interior of the sleek, armored limousine. The city lights blurred past the tinted windows, streaks of gold and neon that felt light years away from the reality Julian was currently trapped in. Julian sat on the edge of the plush leather seat, his hands gripping his knees. Opposite him, Cassian D'Angelo sat with the relaxed posture of a king on his throne. He was watching Julian, his dark eyes unblinking, dissecting him. "You're shaking," Cassian observed. It wasn't a question. I want to get out. "Please," Julian managed to say, though his voice lacked conviction. He knew who this man was now. Everyone in the city knew the name D'Angelo. He was the saint of the underworld, the alpha of the syndicate. He didn't just run the city, he owned the shadows within it. "You grabbed my hand," Cassian said softly, leaning forward. The movement was fluid, predatory. "You initiated a transaction. In my world, when you ask for protection, a debt is incurred. You used my reputation to scare off your hound. Now you owe me." "I have money," Julian blurted out. "I'm a pianist. I play at the—" "I don't want your money," Cassian interrupted, a ghost of a smirk playing on his lips. "I have enough money to burn this city to the ground and rebuild it in gold. I want your time." Julian blinked, confusion warring with fear. "My time." Cassian poured himself a glass of amber liquid from the crystal decanter built into the car's console. "My family," he began, swirling the drink, "is old-fashioned. They believe an unmarried head of the family is a vulnerability. They are pushing for a union with the Varusso clan. A merger I have no interest in entertaining. The daughter is screeching harpy, and her father is a snake." He took a sip, his eyes locking onto Julian's. "You will be my fiancé. You will live in my house. You will wear my ring. And in exchange, your ex-boyfriend will never breathe in your direction again. And if I refuse?" Cassian set the glass down. The sound was sharp against the silence. "Then I open the door, and you can walk home. But Marcus is waiting." I saw the look in his eyes. He isn't done with you. Without my mark on you, he will consume you before the sun rises. It wasn't a threat from Cashin, it was a statement of fact. Julian felt the phantom bruise on his arm where Marcus had grabbed him weeks ago. He remembered the shattered vases, the screaming, the constant feeling of being hunted. Julian looked at the dangerous man before him. Just pretend. Until the Varusso deal collapses, Cashin agreed. 6 months. Deal. The D'Angelo estate was less a house and more a fortress disguised as a palace. It sat on the cliffs overlooking the ocean, isolated and imposing. Julian's life, once filled with sheet music, coffee shops, and the terrifying shadow of Marcus, was suddenly replaced by marble hallways, silent servants, and the overwhelming presence of Cashin. The first week was a lesson in fear. Julian walked on eggshells, terrified of disturbing the beast in his den. He saw the men who came and went, scarred, armed, speaking in hushed tones about shipments and territories. He saw the way they looked at Cashin, with absolute, fanatical reverence and terror. But Julian also saw things the world didn't. One rainy Tuesday, Julian was in the music room. It was the only room in the house where he felt like himself. A grand Steinway sat in the center, untouched for years until Julian arrived. He began to play Chopin, the melancholy notes drifting through the vast, empty house. He didn't hear the door open. He didn't know he had an audience until the song ended, and he sensed the weight of a gaze. Cashin was standing in the doorway, leaning against the frame. He had shed his suit jacket. His white shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms covered in intricate ink, serpents and roses winding around muscle. He looked exhausted. I didn't mean to disturb you, Julian said quickly, moving to stand. Don't, Cashin commanded, his voice rough. He walked into the room, moving toward the piano. Play it again. The nocturne. Yes. Cashin sat on the bench next to him. The bench was wide, but the proximity was electric. Julian could feel the heat radiating from the man. It quiets the noise. Julian hesitated, then placed his fingers back on the keys. As he played, he watched Cashin from the corner of his eye. The Mafia lord closed his eyes, his head tipping back. The tension that permanently knotted his shoulders seemed to unravel, thread by thread. For the first time, Julian didn't see a monster. He saw a man carrying the weight of a violent empire, seeking a moment of peace. When the song finished, Cashin didn't move immediately. Why did you run from him? Marcus. Julian stared at the keys. He loved me too much. Or he thought it was love. It was ownership. He wanted to keep me in a cage. He broke my fingers once, Julian whispered, lifting his left hand. Because I played for someone else at a charity event. The air in the room changed instantly. The temperature plummeted. Cashin's eyes snapped open, and he reached out, taking Julian's hand. His grip was gentle, shockingly so, as he traced the faint, old scars on Julian's knuckles with his thumb. He broke these? Cashin asked, his voice devoid of emotion, which was infinitely scarier than shouting. It healed, Julian said, trying to pull away, but Cashin held fast. Ownership is not love, Cashin said, his dark eyes boring into Julian's soul. Ownership is taking. Love is protecting what allows the other to thrive. If I ever broke something beautiful like this. He lifted Julian's hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to the scarred knuckle. The sensation sent a jolt of lightning straight to Julian's heart. I would cut off my own hand in penance. It was a dramatic, violent declaration, but in that moment, Julian realized the difference between the two men. Marcus wanted to clip his wings. Cashin wanted to burn down the world so Julian could fly. The charade became reality, blurring the lines until Julian couldn't tell where the lie ended. They attended galas together, Cashin's hand always possessively on the small of Julian's back. They dined with rival families, where Julian played the role of the adored fiancé, and Cashin played the role of the doting monster. But it was in the quiet moments that the real shift happened. The late-night talks in the library. The way Cashin started eating breakfast with him, ignoring urgent calls just to ask Julian about music theory. The way Julian started worrying when Cashin came home late, checking him for injuries. This slow burn was agonizing and intoxicating. A touch here, a lingering look there. Julian found himself craving the darkness in Cashin, finding safety in the shadow of the beast. But peace in the underworld is a fragile illusion. 3 months into their arrangement, the Varusso family made their move. They didn't take the rejection of the marriage proposal lightly. They saw Julian as the weakness, the soft underbelly of the Iron Saint. It happened on a crisp autumn evening. Julian had gone to the city center to visit a rare sheet music store. He had security. Cashin insisted on it, 2 large men who followed him everywhere. But the Varusso hit squad was efficient. A black van screeched onto the curb. Automatic gunfire shattered the storefront glass. Julian's guards dropped, blood blooming on their chests. Before Julian could process the noise, a bag was thrown over his head, and he was hauled into the van. The smell of chloroform was the last thing he remembered. When he woke, he was tied to a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. The smell of rust and seawater suggested the docks. Marcus was there. Julian blinked, his vision swimming. Marcus! Marcus paced in front of him, looking manic. He looked disheveled, bags under his eyes. I told them I could get to you, Marcus muttered. I told Varusso. If I help them lure D'Angelo out, they let me keep you. We're going away, Julian. Somewhere he can't find us. You sold me to them? Julian rasped, horror cold in his veins. To get me back, you handed me to people who want to kill me? They won't kill you, Marcus said, stroking Julian's cheek. Julian flinched. They just want the alpha. Once he's dead, we can be happy. He's going to kill you, Julian said, and he realized with a start that he wasn't saying it to scare Marcus. He was stating a fact. You have no idea what you've woken up. He's just a thug in a suit. Marcus screamed, striking Julian across the face. The sting was sharp, but before Marcus could raise his hand again, the warehouse doors didn't open, they exploded. The metal groaned and twisted as an armored SUV rammed straight through the corrugated steel, debris flying everywhere. Smoke billowed, filling the space. Gunfire erupted instantly. The Varusso men scrambled, firing at the vehicle. But the shadows moved. Cashin didn't come in with a shout. He came in like the Grim Reaper. He moved through the smoke, a pistol in each hand, his movements efficient, brutal, and precise. Double tap. Step. Double tap. Step. He wasn't fighting, he was executing. Marcus froze, paralyzed by the sheer violence unfolding before him. He grabbed Julian, pulling a knife and holding it to Julian's throat. Stay back, he shrieked into the smoke. I'll kill him. I swear to God. The gunfire stopped. Silence, heavy and terrifying, descended on the warehouse. Cashin stepped out of the haze, 10 meters away. He was covered in dust, his suit jacket gone, his white shirt splattered with red that wasn't his. His face was a mask of absolute, frozen rage. Let him go, Cashin said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that made the warehouse structure groan. You took him from me, Marcus yelled, the knife pressing into Julian's skin, drawing a bead of blood. Cashin's eyes dropped to that single drop of blood. His pupils dilated until his eyes were entirely black. You drew blood, he whispered. Now you don't get a quick death. I said stay back. Julian, Cashin said, his eyes locking onto Julian's. Do you trust me? Julian looked at the man who had terrified a ballroom, the man who had killed 6 men in 10 seconds to get to him. Yes. Close your eyes. Julian squeezed his eyes shut. Bang. The sound was singular, deafening. Warm liquid splattered onto Julian's cheek. The weight of the knife vanished. Marcus's body went limp and fell away with a wet thud. Julian gasped, opening his eyes. Cashin was already there. He hadn't just shot Marcus. He had crossed the distance in the split second the bullet landed to catch Julian before he fell with the chair. Cashin cut the ropes with a switchblade, his hands shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of a predator protecting its mate. As soon as Julian's hands were free, he threw his arms around Cashin's neck, burying his face in the blood-stained shirt. I've got you, Cashin murmured, crushing Julian against him. I've got you. Look at me. Cashin pulled back, cupping Julian's face. His thumbs wiped away the blood that belonged to Marcus. Did he hurt you anywhere else? No, Julian sobbed, the shock setting in. Just the scratch. Cashin kissed his forehead, then his eyelids, then his lips, desperate, consuming kisses that tasted of salt and survival. I should have killed him the night we met. I let him live because I thought you had a soft heart. I won't make that mistake again. No one touches what is mine. The ride back was different this time. Julian wasn't sitting on the edge of his seat. He was curled up in Cashin's lap, wrapped in a blanket, his head resting on Cashin's chest, listening to the steady, powerful thrum of his heart. Cashin's hand was stroking Julian's hair, a rhythmic, soothing motion. "You saw me," Cashin said quietly, looking out the window at the rain that had started to fall. "You saw what I am. The blood. The violence. I saw you," Julian corrected, looking up. "I saw the man who came for me when no one else would. I am a monster, Julian. That hasn't changed. Today proved that." "Maybe," Julian whispered, reaching up to touch the sharp line of Cashin's jaw. "But you're my monster." Cashin looked down, his expression crumbling into something painfully vulnerable. "The contract," he began. "The 6 months. You don't have to stay. The Varusso threat is handled. I wiped out their leadership tonight. You are free." Julian sat up slowly. The car was dark, illuminated only by passing streetlights. "Is that what you want? You want me to leave?" Cashin looked away, his jaw tightening. "I want you to be safe." "I am not safe." "Safety is overrated," Julian said, a newfound strength in his voice. He took Cashin's hand, the hand that had pulled the trigger, the hand that played the piano with him, and interlaced their fingers. "I lived in safety with Marcus, and it was a prison. With you, I'm free." "Julian," Cashin warned, "if you stay now, there is no leaving. I won't let you go a second time. I will bind you to me in every way a man can be bound." "Good," Julian breathed, leaning in until their lips were inches apart. "Don't ever let go." Cashin didn't need to be told twice. He closed the distance, sealing the pact not with ink and paper, but with a kiss that promised eternity. The fake fiancé, the stranger from the ballroom, was gone. In his place was a partner, a lover, a soulmate who had walked into the fire and decided he liked the heat. The pianist had grabbed a stranger's hand to avoid a ghost from his past, only to find his future held firmly in the grip of the devil himself. And as the limousine drove through the iron gates of the estate, Julian knew he was finally home. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf. If you enjoyed seeing Cashin take control and burn the world for his lover, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a husband who tried to kill you? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt. Masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art. 2 men, BL, Yaoi, Man 1. Julian, messy blonde hair, wearing torn white dress shirt, teary eyes, looking up, vulnerable expression, soft features, pianist hands. Man 2. Cashin, dark slicked back hair, sharp jawline, intimidating eyes, wearing black suit vest with rolled up sleeves, tattoos on forearms, holding a gun in one hand, other hand cupping Julian's face, protective and possessive. Pose, blood splatter on shirt. Background is a smoky warehouse interior, shattered glass, dramatic rim lighting, cinematic composition, moody atmosphere, sharp focus, intricate details.